XDG desktop portals and pipewire capture have been a massive boon to Wayland, both for video capture and for screenshotting, because prior to this solution, basically any sort of desktop capture was entirely dependent on your compositor. The Gnome solution is different from KDE, the KDE solution is different from WL Roots, which is different from Gnome, and it's basically just a massive mess. And if your software that you're using didn't support that compositor, it just was completely unusable. Now apps can rely on these portals and get a mostly expected capture experience. There is still some limitations like doing window capture on WL Roots, but general desktop capture works exactly as you'd expect. But it's still got a problem that is affecting most users. There is a step in there that is unnecessarily inconvenient, and OBS on WL Roots basically demonstrates this the best. So when I open up OBS on Xorg, for example, and I have a desktop capture, let's say for two of my screens, my main screen and then my secondary screen, those captures are going to be remembered and they'll automatically be set up when I open up OBS. On the Wayland side, however, the portal doesn't remember any previous selections, so every time I open up OBS, I have to reselect the desktops, and I have to make sure I select them in the correct order, because otherwise the captures I've got set up are going to be set up wrong. Now you can change the way the selection's being done. In my case, I click on the screen, but you can have it set up with like D menu or Rofi or whatever you want to use to select the displays that are available. Regardless though, you have to select them. An even better example of this is over on Gnome. So if you're using an up-to-date version of Gnome as of December of last year or anything newer, open up a third-party screenshot application on the Wayland side. Ever since late GNOME 41, GNOME decided to close up one of the API loopholes being org.gnome.shell.screenshot, which would allow applications to take screenshots of the desktop. So now applications are forced to go through the desktop portal, and the desktop portal on GNOME isn't set up as nicely as WL Roots. So this shows up. Every time you take a screenshot, you have to go and share your screen. It's not just you do it once, and then you don't have to do it again every single time. While this is a genuinely terrible interaction method, and there is a much more efficient way to handle this, this is the way that third-party screenshotting tools are supposed to function on GNOME with the state of the portals not remembering stuff. Because tools like Flameshot, when they were using that screenshot API, they were relying on an internal GNOME API. This was supposed to be a private API only usable by tools inside of the GNOME suite, like the GNOME screenshotting tool. So the GNOME screenshotting tool doesn't actually have this problem, but this change effectively broke all third-party screenshotting tools under GNOME. So when I say there is a better interaction method than seeing a screen like this, I'm not talking about Xorg, I'm talking about WL Roots. So the reason for this is actually one of the benefits that XDG desktop portals actually have. They're not just one implementation. So when you install XDG desktop portals, you have the XDG desktop portal package, and then also the package for whatever your desktop is. So you have WLR, you have KDE, you have Gnome, and anything else that might exist. The reason for it being split like this is so rather than having like a GTK window spawn on KDE or a Qt window spawning on Gnome, or any window spawning all if you don't want it on WLR, it puts it up to the desktop itself to design how it wants the interaction to function. And a lot of the WLR or WL Roots implementation sort of blatantly ignores aspects of the Wayland security model, and portals are just one part of that. It's common across the whole library, so you don't actually notice it selecting a screen because it automatically selects the entire desktop for you. So this problem first started getting discussed around 9 or so months ago in the context of Flameshot with this issue here. Cannot take a screenshot on GNOME 41 plus Wayland. Initially what this was about was the fact the API had changed, it had to go and move over to the desktop portal, but eventually shifted into the fact that every time you want to take a screenshot, you have to go and use that share dialog. The reason for that is this merge request here. Dbus restrict callers of private Dbus APIs. And then for a while, the problem sort of just got passed around without anybody actually fixing anything. Someone had opened up another issue over on the Flameshot side saying, due to recent Gnome 41 update, to take screenshot, I need to click share every time. And the Flameshot dev basically said, you know, we can't exactly fix this. We have to just rely on the tools that are available, take this up with the Gnome devs, and then they can fix it. So the same person went and opened up an issue over with the Gnome devs. Remember screenshot permissions, so I need to click share only once. And basically they said, well, this isn't our problem. We can't really fix this. Go and take this up with the XG desktop devs. So someone else went and opened up an issue saying screenshot portal without prompt. And this is basically where the work should have probably been done in the first place. Now, this last issue was made before the first two, but when those two issues were made, it did revive the third one. Now, I would like to say that this was similar to the global shortcut situation or XG desktop portals themselves or anything else like that, and that there is a solution on the way and that everything is going to be good in like 6 months to a year. I can't say that because not much is really getting done for this solution. So there have been a couple of potential solutions offered though. You don't want applications to be able to arbitrarily grab the screen without any indication to the user. This is something that is available on Xorg because Xorg does have a screen capture API. It is very convenient for the developers and very convenient for the users. But if you have a malicious application that just wants to capture your screen, that's just something that is rudimentary to make. You want to have some protection against that happening. There are two potential solutions here. One of them is having a piece of metadata on the application that acts as a flag that says this application can screenshot without a prompt. In the case of a Flatpak, you'd store this somewhere like your Flatpak info. But portals are supposed to be a solution that are independent from Flatpaks. They can be used without a sandbox or with snaps or with app images or basically anything else you want. And then what you would have is the portal backend would be responsible for showing some sort of visual feedback to the user if something wants to capture the screen. So if some other application that you weren't intending to run did have that flag set, it would then show the user in some way that a screenshot or a capture had been done. Maybe that could be a visual feedback or an audio feedback, depending on what that portal solution actually wants to do. In the case of Gnome and KDE, they would probably show some sort of notification on the screen. In the case of WLR, it would be pretty much up to the user, whether you want to have audio cue, visual cue, whatever you want. And then in the Flatpak case, places like FlatHub could then limit which applications are allowed to even use that flag. That might sound crazy, but they already do so with file system equals host, which is basically eliminate the entire sandbox and give the application access to your entire file system. That is something they already control. Controlling this as well wouldn't be that crazy. Alternatively, what you could do is the first time you open up the application, the prompt is always going to be shown. And then the user can decide whether they should go and save the permission or show the prompt every single time. This is something you already do on things like Android and iOS. It's already a sort of expected interaction method. And if you go and save the permission, it would then share some sort of token with the application so that when you go and reopen the application, the portal will know the application has that token and then automatically give it back. The problem though is even though those other issues did revive the discussion, ultimately, the discussion sort of just got derailed with nothing really being done. People started asking like, hey, when is this going to be addressed? This is not normal. The workflow is being damaged. This is very frustrating. Please give the user the option to do this. And someone started like reporting stuff again. Nothing was really being done with this problem. So because the conversation wasn't really going anywhere, this was posted. There are no objections to having a one-time prompt for the portal. The other issues being linked are related to internal Gnome APIs being used for this, which was never correct in the first place and is an entirely separate API. Please avoid the any news in this comments. They do nothing but clutter the thread. The issue has also been open for less than 3 months, which at the time it was, and will likely end up involving volunteer work contributed in developers' free time. So pardon the bluntness, but I'm pretty sure more time and energy has been spent on this thread than saved by not having to perform a click. And then Georgia Stavrakis, who is massively been involved in getting things working well on Wayland, said, temporarily locking due to low signal to noise ratio. I'd encourage anyone who wishes to see this feature to go ahead and implement it in the XG desktop portal and at least one frontend, Gnome, KDE, or WL roots. And that's where you guys come in. I am not a C developer. I am not involved in developing XG desktop portals or anything like that. But if you have that experience and you are somewhat interested in improving Wayland and making the experience not, drastically different, but sort of ironing out some of those little issues, I fully encourage you to go and pick up this issue and see what can be done. So let me know, do you use Flameshot on Gnome? How annoying do you find this issue? And if you do use it, tell me why you even bother using it and not just the Gnome screenshotting tool. I would love to know. So if you liked this video, I'm going to go and like the video. If you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, go check out my Patreon subscribers through BarrowPay, linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea. I've got a gaming channel called Brodie Robertson Plays. That's going to be it for me, and I'm out.